Thank you very much indeed, Anton, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can I begin by saying thank you very much indeed to the organisers for inviting me along to speak to your conference this morning. It's always a pleasure to be given an opportunity to support the West Australian mining industry, and this is another one of those occasions that I relish. Today I thought I would begin by giving you a snapshot of the West Australian resources sector, and to make some comments about the supposed end to the supposed boom in the mining industry. I'd also like to cover a number of other issues which I hope will be of interest to you, namely the decision to establish the Minerals Research Institute of Western Australia, issues surrounding technology in the mining industry and the associated local content issues, government involvement in overcoming the skills shortage in Western Australia's mining industry, and finally, I want to make some brief comments about carbon capture and storage and geosequestration of CO2 in Western Australia, an initiative that may have significant consequences in terms of our energy future. So can I begin by giving you a snapshot of the West Australian resources industry at the present time? The WA resources sector was valued at a record $107 billion in 2011, which was an increase of 16% from the previous year. The most outstanding sales during 2011 came from the iron ore sector, which accounted for some $62.8 billion of the $107 billion. West Australia's mineral and petroleum resources in order of value in 2011 are iron ore, $62 billion, then crude oil and condensate, $12 billion, LNG, $9 billion, gold, $8.8 billion, nickel, $4 billion, alumina, $4 billion, and the others totalling some $6 billion. So that gives you some indication of the sort of products that we are producing in Western Australia and the values attached to those. In addition to that production, there is an estimated $167 billion worth of resource projects either committed or under construction at the present time. They will go ahead regardless of the circumstances. A further $151 billion is also currently earmarked in the planned or possible projects categories. In 2011, Western Australia accounted for 46% of Australia's merchandise exports, and this is followed by Queensland with 20% and New South Wales with 15%. So Western Australia, with 10% of the nation's population, produces nearly half of our export earnings. And mining and petroleum products dominated the West Australian exports scene with some 92% of the state's total. China remained our largest customer, taking 43% of all of our exports. Japan followed with 19% and South Korea with 9%. In addition, Western Australia attracted the bulk of mineral and petroleum exploration expenditure in Australia during 2011-12, drawing 53% in the mining exploration sector and 66% of all the exploration in the petroleum sector. In 2011-12, we reached an all-time record of $2.17 billion in mineral exploration. That's a 29% increase on 2010-11. In addition, in the June quarter for this year, expenditure was $603 million, another all-time record, a 23% increase on the March quarter expenditure. So in spite of all of the negativity in the markets at the present time, exploration expenditure in Western Australia continues to rise significantly. And I think this provides us with some very good signs for the future because, as you all know, you have to find the mines of tomorrow today. So in general terms, I think it's fair to say that Western Australia is an impressive mineral province. We host some 523 commercial mineral projects, which includes 975 operating mine sites, producing over 50 different minerals. Very impressive figures. I think it's also fair to say that Western Australia is uniquely placed to continue to attract investment given our close proximity to Asia, our strong regulatory system, and an abundance of natural resources, many of which are yet to be discovered. Interestingly, Western Australia is a largely underexplored mining province. Currently, however, the state's resources industry is not immune to the global economy and to volatile investment cycles. Yet the magnitude of the shift of sentiment against the industry in recent weeks seems excessive given its ongoing strengths. As you will be aware, there is speculation that the resources boom will end soon. However, a boom, which is usually represented by a sharp rise followed by a sharp fall, may not have existed in the first place. Instead, the resources industry experienced a period of sustained economic growth which is perhaps now levelling, and there is a good side to that. It's providing much needed breathing space to deal with skills shortages and some of the cost pressures that are very evident within the mining sector at the present time. So WA's positive outlook can be measured in, or should be measured in terms of our extensive reserves, decades of past production and future production using world-class infrastructure. And this is not reliably reflected in daily editions in some of the alarmist media who see the end of the boom as inevitable. We believe that the state has a highly competitive and mature industry structure well positioned to ride out any short-term price volatility. In this context, the state government will continue to work with project proponents by aiding exploration and research, improving the approvals processes, supporting major infrastructure, building the state's workforce and facilitating investment in the state's resources industry. This brings me now to a recent budget announcement designed to assist the mining industry in respect to research, and that was the announcement of the West Australian Minerals Research Institute. In May 2012, the government announced that a new Western Australian Minerals Research Institute, WAMRI, you've got to always have an acronym for these things, will be established. We allocated some $7.5 million over a period of 3 years, commencing in next year, to kick off this institute. The object of establishing WAMRI is firstly to create a central strategic organising body to better coordinate and target mineral research in Western Australia. Secondly, to demonstrate the state's commitment to minerals research and leverage greater industry participation. Thirdly, to promote international competitiveness of Western Australia's minerals industry through innovation and investment attraction. Fourthly, to increase productivity and value adding through enhanced prospects for mineral discovery, mineral extraction and mineral recovery. And finally, to promote mineral exploration and processing research, which will reduce the environmental impact of exploration, of extraction and recovery processes. This particular project, the WAMRI project, has been a decade in the making. In 2001, the then West Australian Government launched 2 initiatives designed to create strategic alliances between research institutions in Western Australia, the CSIRO and companies operating in the state's resources industries. The intent of these initiatives was to provide vehicles through which government funding could be leveraged to better guide the research institute agendas of the various institutions involved in research. The Energy Industry Alliance that resulted from this initiative was the West Australian Energy Research Alliance, commonly known as WA-ERA, and that's been in place for a number of years. The second initiative, the formation of the minerals industry counterpart, is only now being established, and I'm delighted that we now have the funds to really get moving in respect to minerals research in Western Australia. Because as you would all be aware, the long-term sustainability of the mining sector depends on the discovery of new resources and the development of new technologies. And I say this because the West Australian minerals industry faces a number of quite confronting issues. For example, all of the easy-to-find mineral deposits in Western Australia have been discovered. Successful future exploration will need to search in deeper, more complex geologies in order to discover new deposits. Mines will need to go deeper into more complex geotechnical environments to extract ores. Mineral processing is becoming more complex, requiring more sophisticated technologies to recover minerals. Minerals projects are being developed in an increasingly complicated political, social and community environment, an environment that demands industry have a greater environmental, economic and social accountability. So establishing WAMRI will involve transitioning from the existing MEREWA statutory body, which at the moment has a dual focus of minerals and petroleum, to a totally focused minerals institute in the future. This process is being guided by an oversight group, which consists of representatives from MEREWA, the Department of Commerce, Department of Mines and Petroleum, Chamber of Minerals and Energy, AMEC, and the industry research sector. It's proposed that when it's finally established, The board will have representatives from industry and the universities and will ensure that research programs target and deliver long-term benefits for the state's mineral sector. Which brings me to our support for technological development. Clearly, the West Australian Government sees technological development as being very, very important in respect to the advancement of the industry in Western Australia. Technological advances now allow high-speed and remote data communications across WA, improving efficiency, safety and environmental performance. And this is crucial in a state with so many projects located in remote parts of the state. The state government, for example, also supports Rio Tinto's Mine of the Future program, where a number of new technologies have proved successful. An autonomous drill rig platform has been operating, as well as high-precision GPS and proximity detection for real-time safety monitoring. Rio Tinto has also begun a 2-year trial operating a 24-hour-a-day haul pack fleet, which includes 150 automated trucks. These trucks, interestingly, have so far removed 42 million tonnes of material and travel more than 450,000 kilometres. Amazing technology designed to reduce costs and to increase productivity. Perth is also home to the Australian Marine Complex, which is a world-class centre of excellence in manufacturing, fabrication, assembly, maintenance and technology servicing of the marine defence, oil and gas and resources industry. The AMC comprises 4 precincts and 2 facilities, such as the Technology, Fabrication, Shipbuilding and Support Facilities Precinct, as well as a Common User Facility and the Marine Support Facility. Now, since its opening in July 2003, AMC has delivered more than 360 major infrastructure projects worth in excess of $660 million and generating more than 9,900 jobs. The government is also investigating the construction of a similar facility in the Pilbara to assist in the reduction of cost and reduce the amount of time taken to utilise these facilities. Now, in addition to our support for technological development, we're very supportive of the contribution local businesses can make to the resources sector. The West Australian Government's local content policy is aimed at maximising opportunities for local industry on major Western Australian investment projects. The policy aims to ensure that Western Australian businesses are afforded full, fair and reasonable opportunities to quote and to tender for work for the resource sector. A local content unit has been established within the Department of Commerce to oversee and drive the government's approach to promoting local industry participation. The unit works in a cooperative relationship with developers, with local industry and other government agencies. The Industry Capability Network, the ICN, seeks to maximise opportunities for Western Australian industry. The Minister for Commerce has stated that Western Australian-based service and supply companies are on track to receive a record $20 billion in publicly announced contracts in the 12 months since the launch of the state government's local industry participation framework in July 2011. $20 billion, a very significant amount of money. And a significant number of these contracts will be undertaken by companies located within the AMC. Now, as you all know, regardless of some of the most recent layoffs in the industry, we still need to boost skilled labour in Western Australia. The workforce for the West Australian resource industry is set to reach close to 120,000 people next year. At the present time, it's about just over 100,000. As the resources industry grows, the shortage of skilled workers will constrain both industry output and innovation. Industry issues relating to skills shortages were highlighted by the National Resources Sector Employment Task Force, which identified engineers and geoscientists as likely to be in the shortest supply over the next 5 years. The state government has introduced a skilled migration strategy to recruit skilled migrants to jobs that are not being filled by the local or national workforce. The strategy involves a web-based skilled migration portal connecting employers and prospective skilled migrants around the world. In addition, the state government has committed some $99 million over the next 2 years for the delivery of training services in Western Australia. As well, since January 2011, 5 Aboriginal workforce development centres have been opened in Perth, Broome, Bunbury, Geraldton and Kalgoorlie, and these centres seek to match Aboriginal people to the jobs that are available in the industry. We're also working with the federal government to ensure that Perth is included under the regional sponsored migration scheme, a scheme which will assist Perth-based employers to recruit overseas workers. I'd like to conclude my comments today by briefly discussing the issue of carbon capture and storage, a technology which I find quite fascinating. In particular, I want to discuss the South West CO2 Geosequestration Hub project. Coal miners, coal user for industries, and a major alumina refining company in the South West region have agreed on a proposal for an unincorporated joint venture. The joint venture will be a vehicle to investigate and undertake carbon transport by pipeline and the storage of the carbon in a geological strata known as the Leshure Basin, a basin which is approximately 2 kilometres beneath the surface in the Harvey-Waroona region of the southwest. These industry partners are developing or considering billions of dollars worth of new projects utilising post-combustion capture technologies, integrated gasification carbon capture, or permanent CO2 chemical sequestration in bauxite residue. The estimated amount of CO2 available for capture from new and potential projects in the South West Hub region is in the range of 5 to 6 million tonnes per annum by 2020. The two key drivers for the industry partners are firstly managing the cost impacts of the carbon tax and a future emissions trading scheme, and secondly a step reduction in CO2 emissions to meet their corporate requirements and the expectations of both the state and federal regulatory authorities. On June 11, 2011, the Federal Minister for Resources, Martin Ferguson, announced the awarding of $52 million to the South West Hub under the flagship program, with further funding to be provided as the project proceeds. A business case has been completed outlining transport and storage options, as well as providing a high-level execution plan. A stratigraphic well was recently drilled to a depth of 2,945 metres, and this will be followed up by an extensive 3D seismic program in early 2013. The work being undertaken will enable the South West Hub to finalise a detailed storage viability report on the Leshure Formation. We're seeking to demonstrate that this is the best potential CO2 storage site in the region, and the intention is to be ready to sequester CO2 from industry as early as 2016. But this is not the only geosequestration opportunity we have. There may be many others around the state, and as you know, the Gorgon project is geosequestrating CO2 underneath Barrow Island. As a result, we are developing legislation in Western Australia for onshore storage and transport of CO2. Changes to the petroleum and geothermal energy legislation will allow onshore storage of greenhouse gas, and amendments to the Pipelines Act will allow for CO2 transportation. And expected the legislation will be introduced into State Parliament later this year. So, ladies and gentlemen, in summary, let me say this: the resources sector in WA has a long-term viable future. The reports of its death are greatly exaggerated, in my view. The Minerals Research Institute, together with the technology being developed by industry, will position Western Australia as a major international player in the resources industry for a very, very long time to come. Government policies in relation to local content and the attraction of skilled labour will ensure that West Australians continue to benefit from a period of sustained economic growth in the resources sector. And finally, the geosequestration of CO2 is an important element in reducing greenhouse gases into the environment, whilst at the same time taking some pressure off coal, which is clearly our cheapest and most abundant energy source. So thank you very much indeed for inviting me. I trust you have a very successful conference. Thank you very much.